welcome back to the ISS Brief podcast. In today's episode, we're joined by Joe McGirr, founder of Boatyard Distillery, and Kate Lynch, the head of operations. Founded in 2016, Boatyard Distillery is Fermanagh's first distillery in over 130 years. Since then, it has grown into a premium, recognised Irish gin brand, now served in some of the world's most awarded bars. As a certified B Corp, Boatyard has built sustainability into the business from day one, across sourcing, production, packaging, and operations. And in this conversation, we explore what that looks like in practice, from early decisions and trade-offs involved in building a sustainable business to the realities of certification, commercial impact, and the long-term growth. We also look at how sustainability influences customer relationships, their market access, and operational performance, and what business leaders can learn from designing sustainability into their organization from the onset. We hope you enjoy.
Thanks a million for joining today. I think it'd be great as a starting point, just if you guys could maybe tell us a bit more about Boatyard Distillery, what you guys do, what you make, and what you stand for, and I suppose what really makes you distinctive in the space. Maybe Joe, I'll hand that to you.
So thank you, Niall. Delighted to be on today. And so I'll give you a little bit of our origin story. So we're Boatyard Distillery. We're on the banks of Lough Erne, beautiful part of the world, just an absolutely stunning part. Everything that about the place that we're in, and we'll go deep on this a little bit later on, but it really says Fermanagh, and that's what we like to protrude. One of our goals is to put Fermanagh on the map, and that sort of comes through in our working day. So Boatyard Distillery, born in 2016, had been through an inception process before that, that I went through. It's worth giving a bit of my background. I did work in the drinks industry for the Glenmorangie company, and I joined them in 2004 for the guts of 10 years, basically through a range of different positions, mostly in Scotch and Scotch whisky, but also in global whisky, so always in spirits. But that's really relevant, I think, to Boatyard, because that inspired the early inception. I grew up on a dairy farm just outside Enniskillen. I was one of 5 kids, the youngest. The farm went to my older brother, but a lot of them, that sort of rural Fermanagh, them practices were instilled in me from early on. And it's funny, when you grow up on a farm, you have access to a lot of different things that just make life practical, that became relevant as we went through the stage of Boatyard. But I had worked for Glenmorangie, left them in 2014, and really had the idea to come back to Fermanagh, set up our own distillery. We fell in love. I fell in love with gin through my process. So what I had seen, even back in 2015, 2016, there was a real growing resurgence in the gin industry, and it was really becoming something pretty enormous at that time. And really, the way I describe it is, the world, when we started, I love gin, and I think it's just got a breadth of flavour that is the thing that appealed to me about it was it allows you to unleash creativity. So you can, from a production point of view, whereas whiskey, you're really nurtured into 3 ingredients, water, yeast, and barley, but with gin you can use any amount of ingredients and put your own stamp on it. So that was one thing that appealed to me, but also the flavour of gin itself, and that was at the essence of Boatyard Distillery. We wanted to create a gin that tasted great, that we enjoyed. We wanted to, a gin martini, we wanted that to be really a core drink and a part of its DNA. So the liquid itself had to stand up in a gin and tonic, but also really important in a gin martini. And coming from a liquid background, that was important. Now, starting up with Boatyard, we were in a world where in Ireland went from 4 distilleries to over 100 in a very short space of time, and most, if not all, of these distilleries were using gin to fund the whiskey side. And it was a question that I still get asked to this day: is when is your whiskey ready? That's not us. We live and breathe gin. It's everything that we stand for, and it's really important that we carry that message around. So, our long-term ambition is to ultimately make more gin and really get grow the business in that direction. So that was our DNA. Coming back and trying to figure out, well, how do we make a world-class gin? So it took 6 months, 52 distillations to come up with the right recipe. It does take time. There's a lot of nuances in there. There's a lot of getting it wrong, a lot of kind of liquid architecture involved in getting a spirit to the table. We then looked at branding, bringing that to life, and this is really, the culmination of things started to creep in, because for full transparency, at the start of the business, we didn't decide we're going to be a B Corp business, and we wanted to make world-class liquid in probably a small way. We didn't even have that global ambition right on day dot that we have now. So everything started to build. However, the essence was there. We were looking at things like, right at the start, we were looking at juniper and organic juniper. So, and we were really looking at it from a quality point of view, not from a label or a greenwashing point of view, if you like. It was more, how do we get the best quality juniper? And paying a couple of extra pence per kilo to get organic cert. And in actual fact, for the first couple of years, we didn't even have organic on the label. We didn't bother getting certified. We just wanted to have better quality ingredients, and that was the first thing. And until obviously, the accountant said, "Well, why do you not just put this on the label? Because this is ridiculous if you're paying the extra money for it." So these things started to creep in, and the way that we were doing things, we were sourcing. We were sourcing wheat, and probably a bit of my background lent into that, where in the drinks industry in Ireland, in whiskey especially, people source malted barley for their whiskey, and traditionally that comes through a broker. So there's a small number of brokers across the island, and that a few select ones will grow their own barley, but by and large 99% of it comes from brokers. We didn't want to do that because, and my dad, when he was around, we were always trying to think of, like, how do we get the farmers a better deal? So we went to the Irish Organic Association, approached them and asked them, could they release details of organic farmers to really go out and have direct conversations with them, build a relationship. And through that, we found a farmer in Monaghan, a guy called Mark Gillanders, who really believes in regenerative farming. Has got it's on the side of the N3 just outside Monaghan, where it's sloping fields, lots of drainage, north facing, lots of sunlight, very much a closed gate policy in terms of growing the wheat, and just really, really inspiring. From the point of meeting them, I thought, wow, we've lucked out here. Not only have we found a farmer that will grow us some wheat, we found the ultimate organic farmer as well. And he taught our team a lot of things as well through that process. So that was on the wheat side. And we've gradually, slowly tried to pick off each thing, and how can we be better at this? How can we make more of an impact and more of a difference? So that was back in 2016 that we launched, and we've been on a journey since then. So that's a little bit of the origin story.
Really interesting, and yeah, I was laughing at that piece around the whiskey distillery, because I think I can't count the amount of whiskey distilleries I've been in that is waiting for the whiskey to age, and they have then a gin distiller running on the side. So it's great to see this was the heart and soul of what you wanted to achieve was pure gin, and you're the gin specialist, and really that's the key product that you're looking at.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think we speak with a lot of other businesses as well who view sustainability from that kind of brand reputation, quality perspective, because of the actions and the kind of organic side of it, particularly in the food and beverage space, but similarly from the kind of regenerative space. And it sounds like you nearly kind of grew into doing a lot of good things, and then we're looking to kind of put some structure about, but really you saw the value in leveraging upon, speaking more about the actions and the good things you're doing, both from a business sense, but also from an overall kind of marketing and brand sense as well.
that would be true. You know, we grew into it, and in fact, the you know, before the word sustainability was around, we call it practicality. I call it practicality. It just made sense. Why would we not bring our juniper waste and convert it into a chocolate bar? Why would we not give our liquid waste and send it to a biodigester plant and convert it back into energy, or grain to the cows next door? Happiest cows in Ireland, I'll add. But there's just all of these things made sense, and we weren't even particularly looking at it from a sustainability point of view. It just made sense really for us at that point. Obviously now we're trying to excel and trying to get better at everything. But back then that was the journey that we came.
So yeah, in essence, it kind of sat directly. And when did the whole idea behind B Corp certification come from? And was it a case of, look, we're doing a lot of these good things already, we want to kind of put it behind a bit of structure, or was it more an instance of, look, let's kind of improve upon this and keep growing in terms of direction we're going from?
Yeah, so there was that was back in 2020. Just in the middle of COVID, I guess, that we had the idea. Our managing director, Declan McGirr, had introduced us to the idea of B Corp, which we didn't find it, or it didn't come across it at that point. Yeah. But as soon as we found it, we were looking for something that really encompassed everything that we were doing, because it wasn't just about the sustainability side, the environmental performance. We were looking at other things. For example, you know, we had a healthcare plan for the staff. We had how we treat the employees, how we engage with the community. We were looking for something that would really encompass all of that, and that we could, you know, because obviously there's a lot of ESG accreditation out there that you can get, and this was something that just really felt would be right for us, where it covers a broad spectrum of the whole business, not just your ESG performance.
Yeah. And I think, as I said, it's kind of, I suppose, what we find as well, a lot of businesses can be doing a lot of good things, both from the environmental and social side. And I think it's worthwhile sometimes when you can get it under one framework, both from a certification piece, but also just from, I suppose, a structure and strategy moving forward. And like you said, how you can kind of improve upon that as well. And how, and maybe Kate, this might be one for you, but how did you find the whole process? You know, did it reveal anything? Has it opened any doors, particularly with the likes of buyers or distributors or export partners? You know, how has it maybe that whole action improved upon the business and helped kind of with your overall goal as well?
With B Corp, so I suppose I'll just give a bit of background about myself. So I've joined Boatyard near enough a year now, so coming up next month I'll be a year with the business. So B Corp, coming from a large corporate business, NSERC, so I was in the glass industry for just under 25 years, and like we're governed by a lot of the ISO standards, the BRC standards as well. B Corp was new to me, but I could see a lot of different synergies with those other standards, although they were not all B Corps under the one framework, as we've highlighted. So we're currently going through the recertification process at the moment, which has got a whole new standard as well. So it's constantly driving us to be better, even better than where we currently are. As we go through the journey now to the new standard, yes, we are seeing where it is opening up. It's given us more opportunities to improve as a business going forward around policies and procedures and that as well.
From where we see it as well, it's interesting, you know, some businesses can view sustainability as a cost center. Like Joe, obviously you, from all the actions you were looking at implementing within the business, you viewed it straight away as a value generator, both from a social perspective and your workforce and how you manage with them, but both from an environmental, just made business sense to operate the business and how you're doing it. And similarly, you know, we're dealing with a lot of changes, both from commercial pressures on businesses within the market, and obviously running a growing kind of distillery does mean that kind of real commercial pressure from cash flow, you know, distribution, scaling, etc. And you obviously have your own targets and goals and where you want to go from. like, has there been specific moments where that kind of, your own sustainability standards or the commercial reality has kind of pulled each other in opposite directions, or how did you kind of navigate that, or was it always been the North Star for you guys,
Yeah, I mean, just going back to your earlier point around kind of stakeholders and like customers, what does B Corp mean for that side of the business? Are there commercial advantages? We have one of our investors is B Corp certified. They got that from us, and that was around really, and people view, I guess, investors have a viewpoint on them. Are they taking that level of governance within their own team, within their own company? How does that translate? So, how is Boatyard Distillery being funded, for example, and does it take that in mind? So that was really important. I would say it is an appeal. The fact that you are accredited, B Corp accredited, certainly adds value for stakeholders. On the customer side, one of our importers in Denmark has just recently got B Corp certified, which they saw as a massive thing. Even our US customer, which we're going through sort of considerable growth in the US, and one of the appeals with our importer was around the B Corp as well. So it has a massive appeal to a lot of different companies, and it's really it's more than greenwashing. It's really showing people that this is what you're doing, and this is how you act and behave as a company, and really lifts the lid on your metrics and your data points behind getting certified. So commercially makes sense, and and it's not easy. It took us 2 years to get it as well.
Yeah.
And even at the end of that process, there was, I think we celebrated. We got this beautiful little wooden plaque with detail and made out of old fire hose pipe, which is amazing. So we celebrated for about 12 hours, and then Rebecca, who leads our sustainability, we really sort of caught up, and it felt more like pulling your head out of the sand, I would describe it as, and realizing we're not at the end of the journey, we're only at the start of the journey. And I think that was the pass was not a pass as such. It's more, we have got a long way to go, and that was 3 years ago now. So that's where we've come from on the B Corp side.
Yeah, and I think, like, as I said, for the space you're in, it's so consumer driven, and particularly the consumer market, both within the drink space, they're looking for those premium brands. They're looking to see what the differentiator is, and then particularly when it comes to the practices that you guys are doing from an ESG perspective, it's a huge buy on from a commercial perspective, and as you said, across stakeholders. It sounds like the actions you've taken from the get-go, and then the B Corp certification, hasn't had that, I suppose, strain that other people may say is the case when it comes to any action on sustainability. It's been a commercial driver for you guys.
It's been a commercial driver, and it's just ingrained in that principle very naturally, I think, into the purpose. There has been, just going back to your other question, the commercial pool between products. So we do have that a lot on a regular basis. And one example of that might be, for example, our bottle is quite heavy, our glass bottle. When we were looking at ways of, well, how can we're shipping this all around the world, is there an alternative? Is there another way of looking at it? We looked at pouch for on-trade, which is great because you go from an 800 gram glass bottle down to a 63 gram pouch, which is suitable for but it's not perfect because the materials are not perfect. The weight is a big advantage. It's that whole world has a long way to go. This is just one small thing we're doing. From a commercial side, we had a point. We do a refill scheme at the distillery where people can bring back their bottles and get them refilled. And one of the things we looked at, just on a very basic brand level, was, do we want to be putting our beautiful liquid that we're very proud of into someone's around a bottle that they bring in? And the answer is yes, because we have to make it easy for them. So we find a way to do that. We weigh the bottle. We work on density for the liquid. We find a way around it. And sometimes you have to give a little bit on the brand side to really make that work for us as well. And equally, another good example was on our tours. We're doing tours every day of the week, but we give we're making everything on site as well. So for years we were actually pouring from the glass bottle into the glasses, even though it's made next door. They can see it being made, and it was a real light bulb point when the team and Rebecca had said, look, we're making it here. Why don't we just cut out the plastic, the packaging, the glass, the all of the packaging, and just pour it from refillable containers? So we've been doing that since. And if you work it out, I did some maths before the call on how much carbon we've saved, and it's getting to a significant point. And that's only on that one project. There's a lot of different things happening. So there are some examples.
No, that's really, really good. I think it's good to showcase, from the small, quick wins, and even from a brand, easing point of view, which can probably have a good brand presence from you bringing your own bottle, and I won't show up the distillery with my empty Coke bottle anyway as well. I promise that. But
good.
but even in that instance, it can have a good story about it. But also from the smaller quick wins like that to even going larger, and the intensive framework around this, achieving the B Corp certification. There's a lot of things business can do across the spectrum of what they are and what they're doing to gain that kind of benefits, but also kind of commercial value, brand story, and really just kind of ingrain it in how they're operating as a business. I suppose there's maybe, Joe, more for yourself, and kind of coming towards the end, for like a founder starting today, or an individual, let's say, leading out a business, and again, perhaps with limited capital, or kind of the hundreds of other competing priorities that might be on your to-do list. That I'm sure you have that full to-do list. I suppose, what is that honest case around embedding sustainability from the start? Rather than kind of, and again, looking at it from a value gain, rather than kind of just seeing it as an adjunct add-on to the business. Like, where I suppose we've touched on a lot over the conversation today, but really you kind of seen that value add, and there is an honest case for it.
Yeah, so that's I guess that's quite a big question. And if you go back to the where I'm doing a course at the minute called ScaleX, and then where we're going deep into ESG. One of the things that came out really was that sustainability is such a big word. It's such a mammoth thing. What does it really mean? That's I think for Boatyard, or certainly for me, coming through this journey, it feels like sustainability is just such a mammoth thing, and we have to keep chipping away at that. Responsibility is a more apt word, and I think we all have a responsibility until we get to a point of being a net giver, where we're giving back to the planet. That's where the real win lies. But up until that point, we have a basic responsibility as a company to perform. How you translate that into new business starting up is really where the challenge sits. And I think you have to be transparent and honest right from the get-go. In our world specifically, the biggest impact happens upstream. So it happens at on your supply chain. You need to be totally transparent with yourself on what that means, and for the company, for the growth, how you plan to bring that to market. Is it really a priority, and are you putting that at the top of the agenda? So it's giving you the ability to make better decisions if you allow yourself that transparency right from the off, and be genuine and authentic about it. We've got lots of laws coming in now by the EU for things like greenwashing, which is amazing. It's great. It means that we can't just throw around these big words without having something very clear and very measurable to back it up. Does that sit within your priority? Ultimately, I don't think any new business coming into the world at the minute has a choice. You have to be at a certain level on this to even get off the ground and being respected. Certainly in FMCG as well, it's so important to have that as part of your agenda, and even part of your investment framework, your growth strategy. All of them principles are, I think, it's essential for growth now.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, as you said, I think in instances businesses need to kind of, as you said, ask them that question. And what is our overall value driver here? Is it a case of just meeting those regulations and that's what we're happy with, or is it a case we want to be a leader in this space and actually drive positive impact both from a social and planet perspective? And I think that's, I suppose, where the biggest gains can be made. You know, when you're not just meeting the threshold, you're not just meeting the point of that's fine. You're actually trying to drive yourself from a business perspective. That's where you get the real commercial gain. That's where you get the real buy-in from your workforce and from the customers as well, and kind of where you see the value of the work you're putting into it.
Yeah, and I think it's important that you surround yourself in a team that reflects that. And I didn't come from that background, so we looked at businesses that we aspire to, that we look towards, and NSERC in a local Fermanagh business, or started a Fermanagh business, was part of that. So and that's probably where Kate stepped in, because we thought, well, how can we absorb all of that experience and knowledge and bring in, we were looking at NSERC, and who are making most of the spirits glass for Diageo at the time, and thinking, well, how can we bring that into our culture, into our DNA, and not just happen to do things, but more structure and more of a plan. And one of the many reasons why we hired Kate as well.
And Kate, this is maybe a left field, and we spoke about this before, but you know, coming from the likes of InSerc, and we've obviously dealt with Fiacre as well, and he's a great leader in this space from that perspective, and just driving it as a business requirement. It's going to feed the positive. How was it, you know, your experience with InSerc, and then transitioning from a larger business like that to a smaller business? You know, I suppose filtering that knowledge throughout and managing the different challenges that comes with that, but also kind of the benefits that comes with that as well, and kind of trying to pull that do good feeling from InSerc into elsewhere.
Well, I suppose NSERC were definitely sort of disruptors in that field, especially with the glass industry, and with Fiacre being obviously the driving force behind of all that. I suppose the big difference for me was, you know, when you come from a large organization like NSERC, sometimes it can be a mindset that sustainability is looked after by the sustainability team. You know, nobody else needs to do anything. But when you come to the Boatyard, there's a smaller team. It's everybody. Everybody is a sustainability team. There isn't one team there looking after it. It's in everybody's job role, which is really, really good to see. And everybody's on board and trying to come up with ideas on how to improve things all the time. I think it's really good as well from an NSERC point of view. Really good that, you know, they were educating a lot of people, putting a lot of people through obviously the diploma with yourselves. And again, that's something that we're doing now at the Boatyard as well. We have Rebecca studying from that as well. So I think it's educating everybody, which is really good. And you can only go from strength to strength when people have more knowledge and more information to change things.
Yeah, great. And I think that's sometimes often a blocker we can hear for say SMEs in the space who are looking to take action, where it is a case of, you know, okay, it's great to look at those big corporates, but they have the limited resources and limited teams to be able to put the time and place into it. But from an SME like yourselves, where, you know, you've had this vision, it just makes business sense to take action upon it. And like you said, it filters naturally then throughout the organization when it just becomes the center of your being. And I think I use this phrase regularly, Joe. It's less another thing to do, but just how you do business. It's how you operate, and it's really how you're moving day to day. And I think that's a real value add, particularly for a business within the SME space that can have that, because they can be agile. They can work with a smaller team and build upon that knowledge and innovate together, Kate, as you said. And sometimes with those larger organizations, when retrospectively they're maybe looking at their overall sustainability agenda and how they can integrate it into how the business operates, it can sit adjunct, and the challenge actually becomes getting everyone on board and getting that buy-in And where you have, when you have that vision or buy-in from the get-go, everyone just kind of rows in behind it straight away. From a business, listening to this podcast and wants to take, I suppose, one meaningful step this week, again, what's a kind of something you tell them as a kind of structured action they take to kind of get started or kind of begin really around the whole sustainability kind of ESG space?
Probably the thing that I would say to new business coming about is just around the transparency. Transparency leads to better decisions. And if you've got that authentic process in your DNA from the start, then you've got, so if you're looking at your business, it needs to fall at the top of your priority list. I think and there's no way around it. It has to start with an idea. It has to start with a very simple idea, and you work out from there. But you have to start. It's not something that you put on the Monday meeting and then you're done until the next Monday. It as you just said, it has to become part of your DNA and how you operate on a daily level, and especially with the smaller things. That's how we started. You could argue we haven't moved on to the bigger things yet, but we're working on it. And we're definitely on the daily, build it into everything that you do and how you make your decisions, what you buy. I certainly do it. I'll look for the B Corp logo, for example. I look at companies that are more aware and ESG conscious as well. But yeah, that would be my one tip. Kate?
For me, it probably would be, don't go after the big things. You have to start small. Because if you go after something really big at the start, you'll forget about the smaller things that might have a more meaningful impact by the time you get to the end of the big gesture. So
that's really powerful. And I think, like the guys just summarized, as you said, Joe, it's finding that why, because if you don't know what the why is, it's very difficult to get that buy-in. Is it just meeting compliance? And then it's kind of difficult, as I said, to get everyone rowing in behind. But if it is just where you want to be as a business and where you see the value and where you're getting the commercial value, it is easier to pull in. And I think, like you said, just starting and seeing those quick wins can often be where you can gain that momentum, and that gets you onto those bigger pieces and builds that people thinking differently, like the example you had with Rebecca, just people having ideas from the bottom up, just in terms of how things can change and do business better. And that's really where you find, I suppose, the magic in terms of any action around this space. Guys, really, really appreciate your time today. It's been a really fascinating conversation. Definitely, I've learned more about Boatyard, and I think, it's been really insightful. Just learning about the whole story and how this has been just what made business sense from the get-go and where you want to lead to.
Much for having us on, Niall.
Thanks, Niall.
This conversation with Joe and Kate highlights the value in embedding sustainability from the beginning, not as an add-on, but a foundation from decision-making across operations, supply chains, and strategy. Thanks for listening. And if you're looking to build the capability within your own organization, ISS provides practical, expert-led training designed for real-world application. You can learn more at instituteofsustainabilitystudies.com. Stay tuned for more.